Hey everyone, how's it going? Welcome back to Podio Commentary, where our motto is movies are love, movies are life. My name is Matt Jarbo. Today we're going to be diving into Romeo Must Die. This is the first feature film directed by Andrzej Bartkowiak. I'm currently on a Bartkowiak run, definitely not chronological. Just talked about his Chung Lee movie. So many questions about that one. I just also covered Doom, which he did in 2005, but his first feature film, and the first movie that he made with Joel Silver was Romeo Must Die. And this movie came out in March of 2000. It just hit 26 years. And it is Jet Li in his first American starring role. And it was Aaliyah in her film debut. So, I mean, there's some, I don't want to say some pedigree necessarily, but there's some history here. This is some history on this particular movie. And this movie, produced by Joel Silver, is really heavily based on William Shakespeare's Romeo and Juliet, which is why they say Romeo must die. Never mind the fact that Jet Li's character in the movie is named Han. And Aaliyah's character is not named Juliet. Her name is Trish. Just saying, that's kind of it's a thing. That's definitely a thing. I mean, it's very loosely based. Okay. It's very, very loosely based on Romeo and Juliet. The idea here is you have two warring families that aren't even really technically warring. You know, you've got the O'Day family led by Delroy Lindo, who was excellent in everything. Congratulations on the best, the best supporting actor nomination. And Delroy is great. And then you've got the other family, which is the Singh family, I believe. And they are run by, I don't know the actor's name. It doesn't even really matter, to be honest with you. I think it's Vic. No, I don't even know what his name is. It doesn't even matter. I'm looking at the credits here. It doesn't even matter. Okay, he's not a well-known actor in America. All right, sorry. But one of the things this movie does have going for it, I think, that a lot of people I never really talked about, and I think it caught my eye, is the racism. Holy shit, the racism in this movie. The movie opens with Po Sing, right? He's like the youngest son of the Chinese triad boss Chu Sing. That's the character name. Okay. So he's at an African-American owned nightclub. It's a black club. All right. And he's out there. He's got his girlfriend, and they're making out. Right. And then all these people are just staring at him. And I'm watching this. I'm like, why are they staring at this guy? Right. I mean, I know the little dude is tiny and the girl's hot and whatnot. And they got two other girls there and they're kind of making out. One of them actually is Grace Park, who went on to go be, I think, in Battlestar Galactica as well as Hawaii Five-0. So she's making out with another broad on the opening of this movie, if that's your thing. And you get one brief booby flash. That's it. One brief booby flash in this movie. It needed more nudity, I'll fully admit. But anyway, and then everyone there is upset that they're there. And then overcomes this security guard who has the worst acting I think I've ever seen of anybody. It was so bad. And he does this, he's trying to be I guess you could say sarcastic, and he starts talking about the song Amazing Grace, but you could barely understand what he's saying. It's so bad. And then everyone gets into a fight, and then out comes DMX playing a guy named Silk who owns the nightclub. And the thing is, the opening credits of this movie are the lead up getting to that club, following a car through Chinatown in San Francisco while they play a DMX song. And then DMX is in the movie. So I thought that was great. So that means that Andrzej Bartkowiak and Joel Silver worked with DMX 3 times. So this movie, Exit Wounds, Cradle to the Grave. He gets a lot more in Exit Wounds. That's his best one, in my opinion. And also, I enjoyed him in Cradle to the Grave, but I'll talk about those later. So that's kind of the start of this whole thing. And then Poe gets killed the next day and they hang him up. They lynch him in a black neighborhood. Okay. I just want to put that out there. They lynch him in a black neighborhood. And that's meant to kind of start off this whole war between the O'Days and the Singhs. And the O'Days, right, Delroy Lindo's character, he wants to go straight. He doesn't want to do crime anymore. He's trying to buy in on this NFL deal to build a stadium in San Francisco. Literally, it's a territory thing. It's a land deal, and they bring in the NFL. They never say the National Football League. They say NFL, and I'm pretty sure that's a registered thing. You can't even put Super Bowl on a banner without the NFL crawling up your ass with a microscope. But they actually said NFL in the movie multiple times. And one of the shadier guys was like from the NFL, like, you know, or he was going to work with the NFL, like he's an owner, whatever the hell it was. They never really explained who the hell this Roth guy was, you know, like, but he was just a shady businessman working on this deal. And that's what it was. It's just like, okay, fine. They do that. They want the deal to go through. The son of the Chinese triad guy dies. You know, they're thinking that it was, you know, the O'Days. So basically like the blacks versus the Chinese. That is what the movie puts up. That is what the movie absolutely does. And it does this in very anti-Chinese ways. It's very racist towards Chinese. And there's not one N-bomb drop. All right. Aimed at the other crew. So I'm like, you know, like they really played it soft if on that front. And I'm not against it. But it really, like, you got Anthony Anderson in this movie, you know, and he's calling like Jet Li like a rice head or something like that. You know, that at one point, you know, they use the zipper term for one guy. I mean, it's just like, even at the very end of the movie, when Delroy Lindo meets Jet Li's character, and he's wounded, you know, he makes a joke and he goes like, he's shorter than I thought, right? Like, it's just, there's so much racism in this movie. It's really funny. And again, it's very indicative of the 2000s, right? This is very indicative of the late 90s. You know, look at Lethal Weapon 4. Lethal Weapon 4, produced by Joel Silver, shot cinematography-wise by Andres Bartkowiak, starring Jet Li, very much deals with the Chinese triad. Very, very, very anti-Chinese sentiments in that movie as well. And again, I'm not complaining. I'm just pointing it out, right? It's indicative of the times, but it caught my eye a lot, like a lot, you know? So the guys who wrote this, Eric Berndt and John Jarrell, I mean, like, were they just adding this in? Were they sitting around going like, all right, we need to think of like offensive terms for Chinese people or Asians in general, you know, but we can't say anything negative about the other side. Doesn't make any sense to me. So anyway, so the posting is dead. Okay. And then this is such an interesting scene. It cuts over to China, Hong Kong, and Jet Li is in a prison, and a dude gets himself arrested to go into the prison to tell Jet Li that his brother is dead. So then Jet Li gets a fight going on, ends up going and, you know, beating up all these guards, stealing their uniform, and he gets out. And I will say, there's this great little moment in there where he's on his bike. He's trying to get out. There's a guard there. He's like, where are you going? And the guy's like, oh, I got a tip on the third race. I'm going to go bet. And then the guard's like, oh, you know, I didn't bet once and it won. And I'm not going to make that mistake again. And then so there's this whole thing about he gives him the money to go and bet. It's silly, but I thought it was an interesting little way to kind of like build the tension for that scene. So then he gets over to the States. He tries to get a taxi cab driver to take him somewhere. And then the driver refutes him. And this is an Indian guy, but he refutes him, again, racist in the way that he does it. So he then goes and steals that dude's, his name is Akbar, steals his, I'm not kidding you, his name is Akbar, steals his taxi cab. And as he's doing this, Trish, who is trying to outrun Anthony Anderson, who's now sent to protect her, gets in the cab with him. They have a nice kind of meet cute moment, which I thought was actually kind of nice. And that kind of sets up their relationship. But then as it goes on, he's trying to track down like who his brother talked to, which takes him back to the store that she runs. But her brother does some business out of the back of that. So that's kind of the whole like dynamic of the family. None of it really matters. I'm going to be fair. None of it really matters. All right. The storyline is just like O'Days are trying to go legit. Mac, played by the second in command, played by Isaiah Washington, doesn't want it. He wants to run the streets. He wants Trish. He wants to usurp the king. Okay. So he's basically, you know, he's setting everything up. But at the same time, the Chinese are also going out and they're the ones that are killing the brother, killing Poe. They're the ones that are like they're taking out all the other triad bosses so they can buy into this NFL team and make a lot of money. So you have both groups not fighting each other necessarily, right? Because it's the Montagues and the Capulets. They're not even really fighting each other. Each one is doing their own shady shit to benefit themselves in this deal. And then you've got Jet Li in the center and he's trying to solve this whole thing. And it just kind of like solves it. I don't want to say it solves itself, but for the most part, they kind of come to a head and they realize that, like, you know, they don't really do anything, right? You got Mac, and this is one of the dumbest things in the movie, by the way. Like, this goes to show you the writing of this was so early 2000s coded. So it was like O'Day Developments was who was, getting all these deeds for these buildings in the area where they want to build this stadium. But then Mac goes like, no, Machiavelli Industries is taking over. So like, that's what Mac is short for, Machiavelli. Right. But nothing about this was Machiavellian. He never faked his death to rise to power. Like it just was a name they brought in. Like, okay. Right. Like but I will say, I was trying to figure out who the rat was, who the turncoat was, who the bad guy was. Is it the Chinese? They kind of lean towards that. Is it Mac? They kind of lean towards that. Right. So you don't really know which direction it's going until you realize that they're both just assholes and they're doing their own thing. Not as some like, let's come together and take over the city together. Nothing like that. They just want to take over for their own side of it. They want to be very segregationist. like I said, this movie does not really shy away from any of that at all. And that is, I mean, I don't want to say refreshing because I feel it wouldn't be done like this in modern days. You know what I'm saying? That is like the idea there essentially is that they are just working on their own. And what I like about that is that usually what you have in these movies is you have your A plot and you have your B plot. Okay. And so you have those two plots generally come together at the end of the movie, right? That's kind of the whole idea, right? They are meant to come together by the end of the movie. And in this case, they do, but they're also completely separate from one another. And then Jet Li ends up, like surviving Mac, who is killed by Trish. And then Jet Li goes and fights the guy who killed his brother. And then he goes and basically tells his father, like, hey, listen, no one's going to go to jail for you again, implying that he went to jail in Hong Kong for his father, which was never said before or even implied before that moment. And then his dad kills himself, but which I thought was kind of interesting because then he walks out of it. The cops show up. Here comes Aaliyah. They have this moment where they embrace, they hug. And I'm wondering, like, are they going to kiss? Is it that kind of movie? Because she was 20 at the time when they filmed this. He was 37 at the time when they filmed this. Okay, 36, 37. Okay. Like, I'm not saying it's out of the realm of like, Tom Cruise has had bigger age gaps with the women that he's hooked up with in these movies. But still, it's like there's never really much of what you would call a romantic inclination. And they actually didn't kiss, but it turns out that they did. They filmed the scene where the two of them kissed, but it didn't test well. Right? Now, according to what I read, it didn't test well because in the movie, like the audiences are like, well, he just walked out of watching his dad kill himself, right? Like, would he be in the mood to make out? And I'm like, that's a fair assessment. Story-wise, character-wise, fair assessment. But on the other side, given how racist everything else in this movie has been, it's like we're people who watch this, who are watching all that, we're like, I can't buy it. A black woman and a Chinese guy? I can't buy it. I don't know. I do not know. But I liked it that they just walked away holding hands, and that's kind of where it ended and everything else. And I thought that worked out okay. I'm like, that works out better. Okay, I would have been fine if they would have got together, but it also would have felt kind of weird because it had more of like a brother-sister vibe rather than a romantic vibe. Because also like his brother died, her brother died. So then you've got that dynamic. Okay. And then you've also got like all the family stuff that they had to deal with, all that drama that they had to deal with, that would bring them together. But again, for more of like a relationship, familial aspect rather than like a romantic one. Because I don't think you could watch this movie and then in your mind visualize the two of them smashing. It would feel weird and not like in a manufactured Brazzers sort of way. It would feel really, really weird. So there's a love there. There's a deep admiration there, but I don't view it as being romantic or sexual. I think it's more familial based. And I think that works for the concepts that this movie was trying to put forward. Maybe I'm overanalyzing this shit. That's kind of what I do. I dive into the stories and the thematics because I love that stuff. Let me talk about the gamification of this. There's a bit of a moment. There's 3 moments in this movie that I thought were interesting. One of them was when Jet Li is fighting the guards in the Hong Kong prison, he grabs one and then it cuts to this like X-ray sequence where he breaks his arm, kind of like what you would see in a video game, like a Mortal Kombat style game. Then they do it again when he's fighting one of the Asian hitmen, this lady, and she falls on a spike or like on a rebar, and it goes through her into her heart, and it pierces her heart, and you see an X-ray. And then at the end, when he's fighting the bad guy, he kicks him on the head, and that breaks his spine all the way down to his coccyx. And then he just falls down dead. So they did it 3 times. But that was the funny thing about that is, like, again, the rule of 3 in these movies is never not going to happen. But apparently Jet Li and Joel Silver teamed up to shoot a test version of this, where they then showed that to audiences. And that is what audiences responded to, was like, oh, damn, that's cool, yo. So they did that. And that's what they brought into the movie, right? The idea there was ultimately Joel Silver was like, look, guys, I can't say that that I'm 100% for everything that's happening, right? Like in action cinema, we need more action cinema with Hong Kong stylings. So they did this tester and brought in Jet Li. And they did it, And I mean, look, and I think the movie was a fair amount of fun. It only cost them $25 million to make. It actually ended up bringing in $91 million, definitely turning a profit, absolutely turning a profit, and the movie did, well on home video as well. According to this here, Warner Brothers shipped more than 500,000 units of the title on DVD. So, it wasn't, maybe not a great seller, but it did pretty damn well. And that also followed with Exit Wounds and Cradle to the Grave, right? Like that, Joel Silver knows how to produce movies. If you know how Joel Silver produces movies, he produces them like where action has to happen, I think, like at a set time, right? You'll notice like they'll do story, action, story, action. They do this because it keeps audiences engaged, and it did. And I also really enjoyed Anthony Anderson in the movie, as I always do. He also pops up in Exit Wounds. Not as big of a role, but he's still in Exit Wounds, and I thought he was great. I kind of feel like around this time, Anthony Anderson was in his like Kangaroo Jack era. and I might be the only one who actually enjoyed Kangaroo Jack. Okay, I'm going to admit it. All right. I'm going to admit it. I like me some Kangaroo Jack. But at the end of the day, I am glad that I saw this movie. I'm kind of glad that I saw it now, 26 years removed from when it came out, because I don't know if I would have necessarily enjoyed it as much when I was, younger and watching it. Because some of those movies, didn't really speak to me back then in the way that they probably would now, just based upon life and experience and everything else. And so, yeah, Romeo Must Die, a movie where they call the main character Romeo once, loosely based on, Romeo and Juliet. Almost nothing to do with it outside. They're not star-crossed lovers. They're families that are kind of fighting. Not really fighting, not even really fighting each other. There's actually a business arrangement that they have that's brought up in the beginning of the movie, and that the business arrangement will remain intact. So there was never any fighting between the groups. There was their personal usurping of everyone else around those groups that were related to those groups, but never each other. So that is maybe that's like the weirdest thing, is just that they weren't fighting each other. They were fighting themselves in order to benefit themselves. It's so weird. It's so weird, you guys. But if you've seen Romeo Must Die, let me know your thoughts about it. I'm definitely curious. If you made it this far in the review, thank you guys so much. I always appreciate the support. Be sure to leave a comment below. If you got nothing to say, just say movies are love, movies are life. So I know you made it this far. Recommend me a movie to watch as well. Again, we're going to be going through Cradle to the Grave next, and then I'm ending the Andrzej Bartkowiak run with Exit Wounds because it's my favorite one that he's done, and then we'll move on to some other stuff. But thank you guys very much. Have yourself a great day. My name is Matt Jarbo. This is Podio Commentary. Peace out.